What's something you've learned in wealth management that you simply couldn't have understood from the textbooks and exams that you've done? Something only real clients and real situations have taught you?
Doing the right things regularly really pay off. This accelerator program we want to get you from 0 to 250,000 as fast as possible. And some clients can do that so fast. I'm talking 5 years. If you're able to do that when you're reasonably young, just the power of that really hard work for 5 to 10 years of squirreling away money, just starting with anything is better than putting it off.
How do you kind of navigate that conversation with people that are on private pensions to think more about the power of 1%? We can actually potentially look at that from a pension point of view.
The power of 1%, do you actually know where all your pensions are? Would be a first thing. £31 billion of pensions are unclaimed.
If someone committed to a 1% financial upgrade challenge for all of 2026, what 12 micro changes would you assign them? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Atto. We have a special guest in the building. We have Lisa, who's a chartered financial advisor, wealth expert, and author known for helping people simplify money and build financial confidence. With over 15 years experience advising clients at every income level, she specialises in pensions, long-term planning, and turning small practical decisions into meaningful wealth over time. Lisa's also the creator of Miss Lolly, where she breaks down complex financial topics into clear, actionable guidance that helps people take control of their future. Lisa, how are you doing today?
Yep, very good. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. As I was telling you offline, I think it's going to be a fantastic conversation to really help people prepare for 2026 and really just make sure that they don't only start it well, but they're able to sustain it throughout 2026. Because I think that's one of the things about when you have goals, is to sustaining it throughout the year. So hopefully with this conversation today, it's going to help people. So before we get into our conversation today, I want to start with the person behind the expertise. What's a moment from your life, big or small, that you feel really captures who you are today?
Well, I think you're lots of people at different times, aren't you? So who I am today, well, I've just started the new business 18 months ago. And so I think taking that leap 18 months ago was quite a defining moment for me. I've always worked as an independent advisor, but within different firms. And so taking that leap to set up on my own, I suppose, was quite defining of who I am today.
Okay. So doing that, what did that feel like at the time for you when you did set it up?
It was really scary. I think I knew deep down I could do it, and I knew I'd done all the numbers and I'd done all the exams like long time ago. And yeah, I knew it was the right thing for me to do. So, but it just took a lot of bravery actually, and then jumping. I was really glad that I did, because I've learned a huge amount in the last 18 months.
Yeah. What made you decide to take the jump, even though you've been in financial services for so long? Like you said, you was independent. What made you decide to go off on your own?
I think I'd done a lot of coaching, and the conclusion of that coaching weirdly had been that I'd stay where I was. And then I was on a beach in the summer in Bali, and I was, for my sins, reading the top 100 financial advisors firms. And I felt quite jealous. And I was like, I wonder why I feel quite jealous. I was like, I think it's because I want to do my own thing. And then I just sort of imagined I'd just turned 40 when I sort of started the application process with the FCA. And so I think I was like, I can't imagine being 50 and not having tried. So I think that's why I took the leap. And then I thought, well, it's in the hands of the FCA. If they give me a license, then I'll do it. If they don't give me a license, then I'll stay.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's always good to reflect, and it was good for you to have that time to reflect, because I think sometimes we're so busy we don't get to think about what's the next path in life. And that whole regret framework, I think, is a good framework to think about, especially in the future. You look back, would you regret not doing this thing? And I think if you've been doing it for such a long time, why not, right?
Exactly. And I left a wonderful firm, Westminster Wealth, before, and they were really supportive of me taking the jump, but also very clear that if I wanted to come back, I'd be welcome. So that helped a lot.
Okay. So you
To
had
feel,
the nice fallback plan. That's amazing. So if you had to trace back the very first money lesson that actually stuck with you, the one that still influences how you think today, where would you trace it to?
I think my first money memory is my granddad getting his state pension, and he used to look after me after school while my mum worked. So I would go on a cushion on the back of his bike to go and collect his state pension. And I just remember feeling on that day like, oh, we're quite rich today. And he bought me some bed socks and my favourite tomato sausages. I was very easily pleased.
Okay.
So I think that's probably my early memory of money, and just how freeing it can be, I suppose.
Yeah. You said that you went to go and collect his pension for him.
With him.
Oh, with him. Okay,
Yes.
So what would you do back in the days then? How did they do that? Was it
It was such a long time ago. They actually used to give you cash at the post office.
Really?
Yeah, you have to go and pick it up each week.
That's wow. I could just imagine that.
The old days.
Okay. Was it like I mean, you're probably young, so maybe not know, but was it
Like
do
the
you know
80s?
if it back then, was it like enough for him to live on? Like
He definitely wasn't rich, and but he had enough for what he wanted, I suppose.
I mean, I think that's different to the state pension we get now. I don't know if it would cover like people's needs now. Okay, that's quite interesting to know, like know the difference. Do you think some part of that, because you do talk a lot about pensions now, do you think there's any connections between, collecting pensions and why you have maybe more of an interest in it? You think? Have you thought about that before?
Well, I think we just collect these money stories as we grow up, don't we? I definitely have always been interested in money. I think mainly just working for it. Like when I was from the age of 16, I've always had 2 or 3 jobs. And then through university, I kept those jobs up. And then even in my 20s, I was working in the day as in financial advisory firm, and then in the evenings in a pub. So I think I've always been willing to work really hard for money. I've understood that it doesn't just come, it has to come from hard work.
Yeah. You've got a lot. I'm thinking, did you say that you were working at the pub while you were working in it? Financial advisory?
Yeah,
Really?
I set myself the challenge. It seems a bit bonkers. I mean, I was living with my mother and father-in-law, so I didn't have to pay rent in London, which was a huge bonus. And I think I've paid something embarrassingly like £20 a week for food to them. Okay. But I lived off my pub money. So getting tips was how I went out and had fun. And then the money I earned as a financial advisor in the day was what I used for my first deposit. So it didn't take me long, but it was wow. a good going, I suppose.
Wow.
Working those shifts.
I mean, it just really just shows like because not many people would work a corporate job and then a second job at the same time.
I think people were quite embarrassed. Like, why are you working in a pub when you're working as a trainee financial advisor? And it just never occurred to me to be embarrassed by that.
Not to be. No, because you managed to achieve your goal quick. And I think this is important for people to hear. I think sometimes you have to do what you have to do to achieve what you need to achieve. And I think that work ethic is so important. I've also been working since I was 16, and I think the only stint where I didn't work was maybe uni for a few years. And aside from that, I've always worked. I think it's good. I think it's a good mindset to have, especially if there's things and goals and achievements that you want to achieve. I think it's important for you to be able to do that. So what was the first big financial decision you ever made that genuinely scared you, and what did it teach you?
It genuinely scared me was buying the house that I have now, because I couldn't afford it. It was a right old hole. I needed lots of money spending on it. And I just had to think, I'll get through it, I suppose.
Okay.
But yeah, that was genuinely scary. That was probably the first time that I felt really stressed about money, because as things always do, building projects don't go on time, and it costs way more than I was ever expecting. But yeah, that's probably the first time I've been genuinely really nervous. And I think, well, actually, maybe that's not true, because I think the first time I felt financial responsibility, which was scary, was when I had my son.
Okay.
And I was thinking, how am I going to manage the mortgage, nursery costs or childminding costs. I just felt like I've got to really step it up. So I suppose both of those for very different reasons, but they came around very similar time.
Yeah. How did you manage both from your perspective? Because I think there's obviously people probably listening to this feeling like, financially, maybe there's some struggles, or financially they want to go for something, but they're also scared to take the leap.
Well, I don't advise what I did, because looking back, looking back, I regretted it really. But the way I dealt with it was my mum was a childminder, so she looked after my son. And so I suppose I felt really comfortable leaving him from a really young age. And I just threw myself back into work from when he was about 3 months old. Okay. So I wasn't working full time, but I was still breastfeeding as well. So I was fitting work in around that, but I wasn't. Yeah, I went back to it very early, but that was a way of me controlling my stress, I think.
Okay, wow.
Yeah,
a lot of sacrifices and hard work, Lisa. Yeah. Wow, you are... I think if anybody's going to take anything away from this, you work hard. Where do you think that work ethic comes from? Because you are, you're probably more, way above average hard worker, I would say.
Well,
and sacrifice, had a lot of sacrifices.
I suppose... there is no safety net for me. There never has been. So if I didn't create that safety... Well, that's not true. That's mean to my mum and dad. But they're not... I could move in with them. They might pay my shopping bill for a week or two. But they're not going to give me a house deposit. They're not going to... There's no financial security that they were able to offer me when I was in my 20s, for example, because they're not a lot older than me. They were very young parents. And so I think not having knowing that there was a long way to fall if I didn't sort my own life out, I think was important. But I think it's stubbornness. I can't have people tell me what to do.
Okay.
So if I want to do something that's with my own money, then I can do it, can't I? So when I was 16, my mum and dad wouldn't pay for me to go out to nightclubs and misbehave. So I had to earn my own money, I suppose.
All right. Okay. I mean, that's where the independence comes from, right?
Yeah.
And, appreciate you sharing that with us, because I think it's always good to understand why the drive of what makes people work hard. And I think for that person listening, if they're procrastinating, thinking, okay, it's just really finding that thing for them that's going to really drive them forward. So what's something you've learned in wealth management that you simply couldn't have understood from the textbooks and exams that you've done? Something only real clients and real situations have taught you?
I think it's that doing the right things regularly really, really pay off. And I mean, textbooks, we talk about compound interest and maxing out your allowances. But actually, if you just set yourself a plan and you stick to it for years, not months, then you will be able to transform your financial well-being. So we have a service called the Accelerator Service. And the idea is we don't make profit. This is a very blunt way of saying it, but we don't make profit off a client until they've got at least 300,000 under management with us because of how well we service them. And so this accelerator program is, we want to get you from 0 to 250,000 as fast as possible. And some clients can do that so fast. I'm talking 5 years to achieve that.
That's quick.
And if you're able to do that when you're reasonably young, just the power of that really hard work for 5 to 10 years of squirreling away money and really prioritizing your money. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean sacrifice, because we never say to clients, you can't go on holidays, you can't go and have fun, because I think that's equally important. But setting a good plan in place can help you fast track where you're going. And then that's when the beauty of compound interest comes along. Okay.
And I think today's conversation hopefully should help people get onto that journey in 2026. I do appreciate you saying that people need to do this for the long term, because I think that's where people can sometimes go wrong. They want really short term fixes, 1 week, 2 weeks, a few months. And
it's like me in the gym.
Fair enough. You know what? I think the gym is such an interesting thing, because the gym is probably is like demonstrates like long term. If you do this long term, you can kind of see the physical result. Same with money, actually. If you do it long term, you see the, you know, the pound signs into your bank. So it's like the physical manifestation of it. So how do people's identity around money change in their 30s, 40s and 50s? And how can they avoid getting stuck in an outdated version of themselves financially?
Well, I think you have to look at peer pressure, and whether that's peer pressure or keeping up with the Joneses. It's about making sure your goals are focused on what actually makes you happy and what it is that you actually want. And then I think a lot of people don't actually have goals. And if they do have goals, maybe they're sort of borrowed goals that I would like to retire at 67. When you dig a bit deeper, that's just because that's the state pension age. They haven't actually thought, well, if you could design your life, what would it actually be like? So I think number one is working out where you're going and why, and then surrounding your goals around that. But I think, well, for me, it's definitely been about those decades birthdays. So at 30, I was like, oh my God, I'm so far behind. I need to sort out my pensions. That was definitely a big kick up the bum for me. And then in my early 30s was when I had my children. And then I was like, I need to sort something out for them as well. It felt quite stressful that decade. And then when I got to 40, I was like, oh my God, I'm getting old. I really need to sort out, really go hard now with my financial planning. So I think as you mature, you give yourself a natural kick up the bum to get these things sorted. But sometimes those natural kick up the bums can come a bit late. I did have an example of someone get in touch who was an accountant, which did confuse me, wanting to retire in a year and hadn't done any financial planning. That was the most extreme late kick up the bum someone needed. A year to go. I mean, he was asking for a miracle. But a lot of people, these milestone birthdays do get you to think hard.
Yeah. I often find it so interesting, somebody that's working in financial services, and I work at one of the big four accounting firms for like 4 years. And what you do find as well is that although some people talk about money, it's not like people don't talk about their own personal that much or think about their own personal until like some kind of crisis happens or like you say, some sort of milestone comes up. People are reminded, oh yeah, I'm retiring. I need to be retiring in 2 years. What do I do? Just like so head down, focusing on doing work for others that you don't focus on doing work for yourself. Have you found that a lot with, you know, in being in the industry?
I think the beginning of my career, I did, but I think now, fortunate or unfortunately, the people that get in touch with us are very money motivated in that not necessarily their world's surrounded by that focused on money, but they know they need to sort it out because long gone are those days, like we're saying, when the state pensions, well, I almost do my financial planning that I don't think the state pension's going to be there by the time that I get there. I just worry that how is it sustainable? We don't have defined benefit pension schemes. Our mortgages are ginormous compared to the past. And so we've got quite a lot of pressure on our shoulders and doing tiny things. Can I give you one motivational tip that would help? So just thinking about mortgages. So if you had a £250,000 mortgage, which I know some people might say, I wish it was that small. And if you had a 4.5% mortgage rate and you had a 25-year mortgage, if you thought, well, I'm going to try and save an extra £200 a month, 50 quid a week, cutting back on things, which might for some people be manageable. If you did that for the rest of your mortgage, you would pay your mortgage off 5 years early.
Wow.
So that's the power, I mean, that just to me is amazing. £200 a month, pay your mortgage off 5 years early. And the sacrifice that goes to save the 200 might not be life-changing, but paying off your mortgage 5 years early is life-changing, because imagine what age will you be when that be? Could that be that you retire 5 years early, or does that coincide with when your kids are going to university, so being able to help them? Or does it just give you loads of holidays and loads more fun 5 years earlier? Yeah. But it also deprives the bank, saves you in interest £38,000. That's
a lot of money.
It's huge. And so for £200 a month, saving £38,000 in your lifetime, but also 5 years of being mortgage free is life changing. So I think it's about being motivated about these little small things that we can do that can actually add up to meaningful differences in our lives. And, you know, like when you go to the pub or your friends are talking, you hear people showing off about this portfolio, this investment portfolio. Most of it, I don't buy it when I'm hearing it. I think they're doing it to make themselves feel better rather than to divulge secret tips that can revolutionize your financial planning. But seeing someone mortgage free for 5 years, that's a real game. Yeah, I think it's game changing.
Yeah, it's real tangible, right? To say that you're mortgage free, that you essentially don't have to pay rent or you don't have to pay mortgage. And it's one of the biggest financial, let me not say debt, it's one of our biggest expenses as as humans, right? Like where you live. And if that's covered, then all you know is, okay, I've got to do my electricity, etc.
And the psychology of knowing that you own your home must feel wonderful. Yeah. I can't wait till I get there.
I know. I can't wait to feel like I've had a few people on the podcast and they're feeling quite free. Running a business is tough. Invoices, receipts, tax deadlines, it never ends. I used to spend hours digging through spreadsheets and receipts just to figure out where my money was going until I started using Xero. Xero completely supercharged how I manage my business finances. Before I was constantly second guessing my numbers, now everything's accurate and automatic. Invoices send themselves, payments sync with my bank, and I can see my cash flow in real time, all on a single platform. What I love is how simple it makes everything. Xero takes the stress out of bookkeeping, freeing up the time to focus on growing my business instead of being buried in admin. Xero even makes managing bills easier, showing what's due and when, so I can stay in control and avoid unnecessary late payment fees. And when it comes to tax season, everything's already organized and ready to share with my accountant stress-free. It's honestly like having a digital finance assistant that never sleeps. If you're trying to scale your business or just stay on top of your numbers, this is the software that could actually save you time and sanity. And because I use Xero myself, I've got something special for you. As of filming this podcast episode, you can get 90% off Xero for 6 months by visiting xero.com/savvy-wallet or clicking the link in the description and start supercharging your business with Xero. So actually you mentioned something which ties us nicely into, the power of the 1%. So when we were speaking, you mentioned the power of the 1%. So what is that and why does such tiny changes create such, long-term impact?
Yeah, so the same thing. So let's say you're 30 and you're earning £30,000 a year, and you're automatically enrolled into your workplace pension. So that means you're doing 5%, the employer's doing 3%. If you just thought, well, I'm going to increase an extra 1% into my pension, hopefully that's not life-changing for you in your take-home pay per month. But if you did that, that would give you an extra $55,200 in your pension pot, that 1% by the time you're 65, and it costs you £6 a week.
Wow. So
£6 a week leads to 55,000 extra in your pension pot. And we know that the average pension pot when someone gets in the 55 to 64 category is 137,800.
Okay.
So having an extra 55,000 is putting you way ahead of the average. Mm-hmm. So again, small changes like this £6 a week for a 30-year-old it can transform your long-term financial well-being.
Yeah, it's almost like an extra more than an extra 50%.
Yeah.
On top by just putting 1%, right? So for you, when did you discover that, the whole 1% could have such a big impact over the long term?
Well, I think my clients are real people. Some of them do earn extraordinarily well, but often with that comes huge bills as well.
Yeah.
And so I'm also continually trying to find these little tiny hacks that we can do with clients to improve their financial situation. And it's an easy sell, isn't it? Let's just do an extra 1%. Let's just do an extra 50 quid a week. Let's just do an extra £100 a month. And so each year we're continually nudging clients to do that little bit extra into their pot. Yeah. And it's the same games that I play with myself as well.
Yeah. And it's important, I think, because why I really like that, and when we were speaking about it, I thought it would be so fantastic, because I think sometimes with money, it can become you know, like we were saying, it is intimidating for people. But if you're saying, okay, let's just move the needle just a little bit, I think people are a bit more comfortable. 1%, hopefully, like you were saying, shouldn't be too much of a financial burden for you, but then you're getting such huge rewards from it, you know? So what's the most surprising 1% change you've seen transform someone's financial life?
Biggest change. The biggest change I think I've seen in my client base is a client that was absolutely useless with money.
Okay. Okay.
He earned a fortune and spent a fortune because he really enjoyed, he's a bit of a giver really. He enjoyed giving people money, helping his family out, buying champagne.
Okay.
And I always used to...
Expensive habits.
Yes. And I follow a lot of my clients on Instagram, so I know what their lifestyles are like, what they don't tell me. And so for him, we had to really sit down and have a really honest conversation because he hadn't made enough progress in that accelerator program to be on track. And it's almost like, well, what is the point of earning that huge amount of money and going through that huge amount of stress if you're not going to do something good for yourself with it? You may as well have a less stressful lifestyle and adjust your lifestyle. A less stressful job and adjust your lifestyle. Anyway, something I must have said stuck with him and got under his skin. And he got to that 250,000 because he's a high earner within 3 years.
Okay.
So he spent probably 8 years with me dithering around, not achieving... Well, what we put in, he took out. Like, there was always an excuse.
Seriously?
And then once I'd give him a bit of a mother's telling off, 3 years it took him to get that first $250,000.
Oh, gosh. It's an interesting story because it's one of those ones, there's this assumption, and I've spoken about this on a podcast, that when people make more money, people automatically think that you become better. But then actually, like the story you're saying, is actually you're just spending everything you're making.
If you're a spender, you'll always be a spender with more money if you earn more. I'm a natural spender. And I have to put guide rails in place to make sure that when I earn money every month that I do the right thing with it first, because I already know what I'm going to spend my money on this month. And it's clothes, shoes, holidays.
Okay, so you've got you're quite regimented in what you'll spend, which is good. So you've got a plan for it.
But I could spend my whole income, my whole disposable income on it as well. And so I have to set aside the money first. And in places where I can't touch it, it's no point for me. Even if my own bank account was giving me the highest interest, if that's the bank account that's on my app, there's absolutely no point in having it in that account because I will spend it. It has to be out of sight, out of mind. So I think you have to think about your own personality and what games you can play with yourself to make sure you've just got no other choice but to be good with money, because being bad with money is harder. Like for me, if to get into my savings account, I'd have to order a new PIN from the bank for it to then arrive. For one account, and the other one I just have to go through, like the changes and it takes about, I think it's 8 days for me to get the money.
Seriously.
So I have to put these boundaries in place. So
no, thank you for telling us this, because I think sometimes people, just because someone's good with money or in this industry, sometimes people think that we don't have our own urges and things that we don't have to fight off. I would say back in the days I was a spender. I'm probably still a bit of a spender. But like you, I have guardrails. My guardrails are, as soon as my money comes in, most of it is out. And then if I need to spend, I need to actively transfer money into the account that I'm going to spend in. So I know how much I'm spending. So it kind of forces me to check my accounts to see, okay, I tell you, you're spending too much. Okay, we need to go, oh, you're not spending. Oh, you're good. Okay, you can spend a bit more. So that's some of my guardrails. But I was a spender, not like crazy, but I think that's what got me into the money situation, what's got me into the path into, teaching myself and then getting better at it. And now talking about it on podcasts with amazing people like you. So the person that you said that transform themselves. What were some of those 1% changes that they made to?
They had to do way more than 1% changes.
Really? Wait, what? Okay, wow.
Well, we went through this couple's credit card statements, and it was really shocking to them when you added it up. I can't remember the exact number, but I suppose the number's irrelevant. But it was a considerable amount of their money spent on their credit card. And when we went through just a month as an example, nothing was necessary. There wasn't a thing that they thought they could either do without or halve.
Okay.
And so this lifestyle creep had really, really taken over.
Wow.
But I think if I was just going to start by trying to change some small things in my life, I'd build up my cash savings. So ideally, it's a scary number, but 3 to 6 months worth of cash in the bank. And that's not going to happen overnight. You're going to need to set up a direct debit for it to be out of sight, out of mind. This is not money that you spend when your friend asks you on a last minute holiday, or when you see the coat of your dreams in the sale in January. This is your emergency buffer for a true emergency. You lose your job, something breaks down, burns down that you're not insured for, then that's what the emergency buffer is. And that 3 to 6 months, once it's done, it's a real sleep well at night feeling. So I do that first, and obviously stabilize any debt that you've got. Make sure that it's on 0% or that it's been proactively being paid off as fast as possible. And then from there, I would look at, do I need to overpay my mortgage? So many people are on a mortgage that's affordable, but they've not considered the term. And so if you want to retire at 60, but your mortgage isn't paid off at 65, what are you going to do at 60? So you're going to downsize, and most people feel far too young at 60 to start downsizing. Yeah. Or you've got to think about it now and do overpay. There's a great, on Martin Lewis, Money Saving Expert, there's a great calculator, mortgage overpayment calculator. Just Google it. And that can help you work out, well, what do I need to do to clear my mortgage? And for a lot of clients, we use their bonus or some of their bonuses, if they're lucky to get them, to do this one-off mortgage overpayment to get it done. So if you can't necessarily afford it out of your monthly, you can use it for bonuses as well. I'd also think about how much could I afford? So what's my 1%? There's a great calculator on Fidelity, and I think it's called The Power of Small Changes. Okay. And Fidelity show you what if you just did, what's your age, what's your income, and what would 1% difference make to you? So you could have a look at that to see if you just want to increase your pension at work. But another power of small changes is if I saved £250 a month into an ISA for 30 years and I was getting 4%, and I know everyone will say, well, that's far too low, but it's just the example. If I was getting 4%, I'd have paid £90,000 in, and my pot would be worth 171,000. So I've had 81,000 in growth. But if I try to just get 2% more, or say I get 1% more in growth, but 1% less in charges, they both work. But say I got 6% interest now, my pot, rather than being 171,000, is 243,000. So I've still paid in the same 90, but I've got £153,000 of growth now rather than the 81. Yeah. And so the power of small change that you could do is, am I in the right investment? Am I paying a reasonable amount of charges? Because the cheapest doesn't mean it's the best, but neither does the expensive mean it's the best either. But just getting that extra either uptick in performance over time or reducing your costs can really, really change the amount that you get in your pot. So I think that's another quick tip.
Thank you. And I think it's super important for people to understand that, especially as we relate to pensions, right? I've had this conversation before with pensions. That wasn't even something that I really looked into myself, but a lot of us, when we work for companies, we're enrolled onto a private pension. We don't really, around that, how do you kind of navigate that conversation with people that are on private pensions to think more about, okay, well, the power of 1%, we can actually potentially look at that in from a pension point of view?
Yes. So the power of 1%, do you actually know where all your pensions are? Would be a first thing. 31 billion pounds of pensions are unclaimed.
Wow.
So is there a job? Like, if you haven't paid into a pension ever, you can only pay in your allowance for the current year.
Yeah.
If you've paid into a pension at once during your lifetime, you can go back and use the last 3 years of unused pension allowance. So I had a client who sold his business, had been so focused on his business, he'd never paid into a pension. And I said, did you ever have a pension? And he's like, no. I was like, not even when you were 21, your first job out of uni. Do you think you could have had one? And he was like, possibly. And he worked for one of the big four accountancy like you. I was like, well, let's write off to them and find out. So if you go onto the .gov website, don't go onto anything else because a lot of them can be trying to steal your money rather than help you with it. But go onto .gov and it's government pension tracing service. You put in the employer and it tells you who to get in touch with. To track down, and you're going to need to tell them obviously your name at the time, your name now if it's changed, your national insurance number, date of birth, and ideally an address history from if you can remember where you were living at that time. And anyway, we managed to find this £13,000 pot that he just completely forgotten about, didn't know it was there. Exactly. And he was in his 40s now. This was something from when he was in his 20s. So the power of that was that we found this £13,000 that he didn't realise he had. But also it meant that he was able to use the current year's pension allowance and also the last 3 years. So when he got this big lump sum from selling his company, we were able to put more of it into a pension to be more tax efficient. And a little side note, the most I've ever found from someone using the pension tracing service is over £1 million.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Somebody had £1 million in pension. They didn't know?
They thought, like, I've got some pensions. I think it's going to be a couple of 100,000. It took us over a year to trace these pensions, some of them dating back way to the 80s. And yeah, over £1 million in pensions this man ended up having. So not everyone's going to be as lucky as him, but £13,000 is a huge amount of money as well. And so is a couple of thousand if you get it in the right place and look after it. So I think that's one thing for sort of pensions is finding out back pensions and then looking at the pension that you're in. So please don't be afraid of your pension provider. You pay them to serve you. It's not the other way around, as a lot of people feel like. So call them up and ask the questions. If they don't answer these questions in a way that satisfies you or in a language that you understand, ask to speak to someone else or put the phone down, call back again. Always call a pension provider, by the way, at either 8:30 or 9 in the morning because no one ever rings them. If you call them at lunchtime or 2 o'clock, you'd be waiting for hours. I know because I spent many a time on hold. Find out, say to them, what is the name of the investment that I'm in? Ask them for the CDOL code, which is just like a reference number for each fund. Ask them for the CDOL code or the ISIN code, ISIN. And then ask them for a list, either email you the list or ask them to signpost you to the website so you can see all the other investments that you're able to be in that pension. And then if you go to a website called trustnet.com and put that reference number in or the name, if they haven't given you the reference, into Trustnet, and it will show you a graph. And on that graph will be 2 lines. One will be you and one will be the average. And it'll just give you a sense check of what is that pension doing? Where is it invested? For those of you who are ethically minded, you'll be able to see the top 10 holdings. So are you investing in companies that you wouldn't want to be invested in, for example? And then you can do the same thing for the list of funds that they've given you and have a look to see if there's anything that maybe is more suitable to you. Maybe it's performed better. Maybe it's a bit cheaper. But yeah, I think that's a good task for the first quarter of 2026.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lisa. These are fantastic tips. And I didn't realize how big because we've talked, generally people know that in the future there might be a pension crisis, but the fact that there might be a pension crisis, but there's so much pensions that have been unclaimed
It's crazy.
It's crazy to me. I don't want to say, but there might be somebody listening to this that might actually have an unclaimed pension.
Well, I'd love to know. There's a man in Leeds who has £1 million unclaimed on premium bonds since the early 90s, and he's still not claimed it.
That's crazy.
So you can look at unclaimed premium bonds as well online and see
Really?
if you've got any. Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand where the disconnect is happening and
it's
why
because you move. Because you move house,
yeah.
and it was before these things were before when maybe we just had online logins.
Yeah.
There's £106 million of unclaimed premium bond prices
as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so people, there you go. Lisa's giving you your task to go and find out, and I really do like that. The second website you mentioned,
TrustNet,
where it tells you what your holdings are. I think that's very useful for people to, especially because sometimes I feel like, not that there's anything wrong with a fact sheet, but I can see that it could be a bit intimidating if you're not really used to seeing that. So something like that, I think, is very useful for people to just understand, from the offset as well. So no, thank you so much for those tips. I think that they are very useful. So why is it becoming more important for people to contribute to a private pension, especially as we head into 2026?
Well, it's very important because most people don't understand actually how much we need. So if I said to you, I've got £1 million in pensions, you'd probably think, oh, well, she's rich.
Yeah.
I don't yet, but I hopefully will do one day. But you would think, oh, she's doing all right for herself. But actually, if you have £1 million in pensions, you're probably going to get roughly a £40,000 a year taxable income from your pension pot. So suddenly that isn't really, really rich, is it?
No.
So if you take what you need per year and times it by 25, that's a really rough rule of thumb about where you need your pension pot to be in today's money by the time that you retire. Yeah. So if I want £10,000 a year, I'm going to need 250 grand in my pot.
Okay.
So, and we need to know this stuff now because a generation ago for me, 2 generations ago for some people, or even longer maybe, depending how young your listeners are, they had it done for them. They had these defined benefit pension schemes where you turn up to work, and as long as you do your 40 years service or whatever it is, you walk away with 2/3 of your income.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case anymore. Those pensions, unless you're a teacher, NHS, or a public servant, you've got a version of that, but often it's a diluted version of that. So an example is I had someone come and do a financial diagnosis session with me last week who wanted to retire at 60, had got one of these great defined benefit pension schemes, but that pension wasn't going to pay out till 67. Okay. So we needed, his financial plan was actually going to be quite easy. We just needed to save 7 years extra of money for him so that he could retire at 60, but off his own money till his other pension kicked in.
Okay, so you had the plan. But it's a good thing that he came to see you because you see, that's a smart person, right?
Exactly.
They're coming to see you. They understand. They're they're interacting with this, and then they had a plan. Whereas somebody might have just had to work until 67.
Yes.
Right?
And the earlier you start, the easier it is to achieve that goal. And he wasn't far off, actually. His money just needed a little bit of direction.
Yeah. So I know we talked about the unclaimed pensions, people, which I think is a huge mistake. I mean, imagine somebody missing out on $1 million. You're struggling.
Do you know what was horrible about that? He was a really mean man.
Oh, God. He was me too.
No.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Yeah. Oh no! Oh God! Yeah, you don't want to help people.
Didn't allow him to become a client because he was so mean. But it should have gone to a nice person.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, but I mean, look, at least you helped him, right? Like, look, sometimes you can't. I feel like you can't go down to if somebody's mean, you can't be mean with them. You just do your thing and try and be a pleasant person. But are there any other mistakes that you see people make that quietly cost them? Thousands in terms of their pensions? In
terms of pensions alone, the checklist is, are you in the right fund? Are you, do you know where they all are? Are you paying in the right amount? Are you getting the maximum that you can from the employer? So I did an article, I think I then became the mean person because in this article I actually it looked at 3 journalists' pensions for the Daily Mail and marked their pensions out of 10. I gave a 2 for one of them. And it was because what these journalists weren't doing was getting all the free money they could from their employer. So I can't remember the exact amounts, but let's say if you pay in 3%, the company will pay in 5%. That's the minimum to go in. Sorry, the other way around. You pay in 5%, they pay in 3%. But if you pay in 6%, will they pay in 1 more? If you pay in another 1 more, will they pay in another 1%? So look at your pension brochure at work to see what's the maximum you need to pay in to get the maximum contribution from your employer. I think that's one of the most important things.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. And I've had this conversation about funds before. How do people figure that out? Because that's probably one of the toughest. And I'm sure you have probably get asked this. You probably had this thousands of these kind of questions. How do people figure out? Because at the end of the day, I think people want to, aside from the ethical, let's assume that people just want to make the best return that they can. How do they figure that out for themselves?
So you'll get automatically enrolled in the default fund. And if you don't do anything, that's just the way it will be. So it is now your responsibility, not the employer's responsibility. It's your responsibility to make sure that what that pension is invested in is performing well. So if you're, for example, in the Nest pension, it's a very common one. I picked this one first because a lot of people are in it. You can go on my website and I've done it for you. It'll be up there in the coming weeks. So it'll be ready for when this podcast launches, but you can go and have a look there. I've broken it down for everyone. But if you're not in Nest and you're in something else, you need to go on to TrustNet and look at the name of the pension that you're in. But also you need to ask, is it lifestyling? So what lifestyling means is 5, 10, 15 years before the predetermined retirement date, the pension is automatically going to switch away from stocks and shares and into safer or deemed safer things like cash and bonds. Now, that might be all right. It might work in your favour. But at the same time, it might not. It might be the wrong time to sell your equities to switch into these investments. But also, it might not be linked to your correct retirement date. So for a lot of clients, we probably would start that process naturally in our client base 3 to 5 years before retirement. Right, okay. But 15 years before feels quite extreme.
It's quite early, isn't it?
Yeah. So
15 years.
I'd have a look at what is your pension in and is it lifestyling, and if so, over what time frame, and then what does that actually mean? What do they switch you into automatically?
Yeah, you said something that hit me. It's your responsibility. And when you said that, I was like, that's actually true, but you're not even told it's your responsibility.
No, exactly.
Because I've worked at many companies. You join, you get the standard letter. Okay, you've been enrolled, but it's like, okay, now you're left to your own devices. Now you've got to figure this out, and that's what it is for a lot of people. And many people still don't realize that it's their responsibility to sort this out. Nobody's going to sort it out. Of course, if you see advisors, they're going to help you. But if you don't, you've got to do it yourself.
But it's easy.
Yeah.
And the challenge, like I said earlier, is to ring up the provider, find out what you're in, get the brochure, but then just go on trustnet.com and see how you're performing.
Yeah. So, over 70% of people who watch these episodes are subscribed. If that's you, hit the subscribe button. It really supports the channel, it helps it grow, and most importantly, lets us keep bringing you valuable conversations like this one. Plus, you'll be the first one to know when new episodes drop. Thank you so much for your support so far, and enjoy the rest of the show. So, many people feel like they can't afford to increase their pension contributions. How should they think about balancing what they want now versus what they'll desperately wish they'd done by, in the next 10 years or 20 years?
Well, maybe you can't afford to do it right now, but you'd need to have done your numbers hard and well to know that that's correct. So have you really done the numbers? The second is, if you can't afford to do it now, can you ask for a pay rise? And are you really being paid what you should be paid for your role? If not, can you negotiate that pay rise? Can you move jobs to get the salary you want? And then play that game with yourself. Don't give yourself a pay rise, give your pension the pay rise. Every time you get a pay rise from them, can you split that pay rise so you keep half, your pension gets half? So if you really can't afford to do it now, then you can play those games with yourself to increase the pension. But most people, if they're not on the breadline, of course, but most people will be able to afford a small amount. So that example I did earlier of the £6 per week, how much do you spend? Could you manage £1 a day?
Yeah. Which the £6 a week is an amazing example, because it's a small amount, but it shows such a big impact. On the opposite side, right? Although we can use the power of 1% to our advantages, it can also work against us. What's like 3 small recurring, things that people do that can quietly, destroy their finances, or even just limit, the opportunity?
My 3 top things that people do to that pulls against a good financial plan is, number 1, not doing the right things on the day you get paid. And if you want to geek up on that, I would read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. In that book, he talks about doing the right thing on payday. And then you can spend the money on whatever you want, knowing full well that the money's gone to the right destination to start with. I think putting things off, even just putting off your financial planning by a year or 5 years, especially 10 years, is huge. You're giving yourself an even steeper hill to climb the longer that you leave it. So just starting with anything is better than putting it off. And then I think 3rd is just burying your head in the sand. You wouldn't believe it, but as a financial advisor, we do these sessions that I've mentioned already called financial diagnosis session. It's just a one-off session. And in those sessions, so many people cry their eyes out. And it's mainly because so much emotion is tied up with your money that when you get a chance to actually speak about it, lots of things can unravel. And for some people, they're scared because actually, oh my God, I didn't realise I was this far away from what I needed to be achieving. I've sort of been burying my head in the sand. But also the opposite happens a lot, which is that so many people are so nervous about money. Maybe they oversave in cash but aren't investing, is a big trait of that mindset. But they're closer than they think. And what they're actually sad about is, well, had I known this, I could have gone on that holiday last year. I could have done that amazing thing that I missed out on 2 years ago. So getting some financial clarity, I think, can really help understand where you are so that you can live your life. One of the saddest things I see is we've got quite a large client base now, and sadly we see all sorts of things in life, but when people die too early, and there's nothing sadder than when someone squirrels away far too much and doesn't allow themselves financial freedoms to enjoy themselves and do those holidays, and then they die too early with far too much money. But the converse is true as well, when people spend far too much now so that they have to do a job that maybe they hate for a lot longer. So I think it's about finding that balance.
Balance is so important. And it's like you're saying, both could be true. You don't want to be old and broke, but then you don't want to missed out on life either, right? So like you have to balance, and it's just always that balancing act that you have to do, which is why you have to have like an active, thought on it. So as we head into 2026, what do you think will be the biggest financial challenge for the average household, and how can they prepare for it? Meanwhile, by the way, guys, I should say we're recording this before the budget. So just in case, because we don't know, there's been rumors, so just in case something crazy comes out that we haven't heard about, Lisa's answering this pre-budget. So
well, people are arguing there might be a stock market wobble next year. If that's the case, you've got to hold strong, pay in more if you can while markets are low. Don't see it as an opportunity to freak out. And maybe simulate that in your mind. If markets do fall this year, coming 2026, how will you react? Clients that know they're going to react badly, they don't log in.
Okay, that's a good tip. Yeah.
If you're a kind of person who's logging every day and it's sending you crazy, just stop.
Delete
stop.
Alerts, everything.
Then pay in more if you can. But also, if markets do fall, this is just normal. We expect markets to fall many, many times between now and when you die, for the rest of your life, for however long you're invested. So try not to freak out. Maybe mortgage interest rates are going to come down. Okay. I don't know, but let's see. Well, it's thought the Bank of England or the Monetary Policy Committee are starting to go towards bringing down interest rates. If they do that, what game can you play yourself if your mortgage is on variable? Rather than the mortgage going down, can you continue to pay at the rate that you were paying to start to chip away at that mortgage faster? Maybe use that calculator and the Martin Lewis one that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, I think it's about ignoring the noise of what's going on in the markets or what's going on with the government and the tax changes and the new rules. It's just your plan. Do you actually know what you have to do every year to achieve your goals? And then do you track it?
Yeah.
And if you don't, that's got to be where you start.
Yeah. On the stock market stuff, actually, I was just thinking about it. So I got a new phone maybe a few weeks ago, and I hadn't really. I think I used to get like my notifications from like Yahoo Finance, Trading 212, all these apps, right? And I think Bitcoin had gone down or something like that, and I hadn't known about it. And what it made me realize was like, wow, like news can. I know it has an impact. But if you just don't follow it, it just doesn't have any bearing on you. If you're not, like you say, don't log in and, don't follow the news and stuff like that. Of course, if you need to for certain things. But I think when there's a lot of fear mongering, I think that's what's going to get you to react. But if you're just living your life, doing what you need to do, it's less likely to have an impact on
well, so if you bought the right thing in the first place, for the long term, it should still be right whether markets are falling or not.
Exactly. So I think that news, especially in the age that we're in, this everybody's calling it a microwave society, where we get all these blasts of news, lots of notifications. I think just trying to avoid it as best as you can is going to really help you. So okay. So if someone committed to a 1% financial upgrade challenge for all of 2026, I've said all of 2026. Not
what about
just
the rest
month.
of their working life?
Let's say rest of working life. Yes, okay. 2026 and rest of working life. What 12 micro changes would you assign them?
So it's got to start with cash, because there's no point investing if you don't have the right amount of cash. So look at your income, look at your outgoings, look at your net worth and track both of them. So that could be a January job, is working those two things out and then monitoring them every month going forward. I've got a spreadsheet for that if anyone wants it. And then second one would then be, what is your ideal amount of cash? So I'm working away a plan to actually get that. So it doesn't need to be something that you're going to get next month or the next year, but a plan that you're going to get that over a sensible period of time. And let's say you're spending £2,000 a month, you're going to need to have ideally 6 months worth of cash in the bank. So that's a £12,000 emergency cash buffer. So a plan of how you're going to get to that, and that you're putting that in, if you're not using your ISA allowance already, that you're doing it tax efficiently and that you're getting a good interest rate. Next is, what can you do an extra 1% into your pension, or can you, if you pay in more with the employer, pay in more? Next is looking at the pension that you're in, and can that perform better? Number 5 would be tracking down all those pensions if you've got them. And just like that guy in the story, even if you think there isn't one, just contact old employers just in case. And hopefully you end up being the nice £1 million man. Number 6 would be writing a will. So many people don't have a will and don't understand that you need one. And you really, really do need one if you want to leave less financial hassle behind. And obviously no one knows when they're going to die, so just get one done. Next one is the mortgage. So if you have a mortgage, are you on the right interest rate? Can you get any better? If so, can you overpay without penalty? And then number 8 would be looking at all your bills. So I know in 2 days' time, my gas and electricity tariff ends, and I'll go on to the standard variable rate, which will mean that my bills will shoot up if I don't do anything. So many people are on the standard variable rate when it comes to their gas and electricity. So see what you can do to change that, especially ideally earlier in the year, because it's the colder months where I'm spending more money, but definitely before next autumn comes along. I've lost track. I think I'm on number 9.
I lost track a long time ago. I'm just like absorbing the tips. Yeah.
Number 9 would be preparing early for your tax return. So the 31st of January is the deadline, not the date. So many people don't realise that. So can you do your tax return as soon as the new tax year starts? So in April or May. It doesn't mean you have to pay the money earlier, but if they end up owing you, then you'll want to get that money earlier rather than later. Before the end of the tax year for number 10 would be, is there anything you can do to pay into a pension before the end of the tax year that's going to reduce your earnings? So let's say I'm earning £60,000 a year. The basic rate tax threshold currently is £50,270. So if I just pay it just shy of £10,000 gross into my pension, which is going to cost me £8,000, I'm going to reinstate myself as a basic rate taxpayer. And then I'm also going to get another £2,000 in my tax rebate as well. So can you do anything like that? Are you, if you're married and you trust that person with your money, are you attacking your financial problems as a couple? In which case you want to probably have the pension payments, most of the pension payments going in the higher rate taxpayer's name, but you're probably going to want to have more of the taxable stuff in the lower earner's name. And then 12, I would say 12 is really think about your money goals to give yourself some direction.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That's been so valuable. So many, great tips on this conversation. From a mindset point of view, because I think mindset is so important to getting this done. And a lot of people are going to have a lot of energy at the beginning of the year. Everybody's going to be motivated. What would you say are some 1% mindset shifts people can make to really just help them, try to stay consistent, especially with this stuff?
Learn to say no.
Yeah. Okay. That's important. Why that one? Why learn to say no?
No to that extra round of shots. Maybe I'm thinking myself there. No, just no, the things that if you're spending your money, spend it with intention. And so is it stuff that makes you happy and is on it you want to do, or you just go in with the flow and you're spending money willy-nilly? If you're spending money willy-nilly, just say no to the things that don't bring you extra happiness.
Yeah. If there is somebody listening to this and they do think it's overwhelming, we can't control that. It could be. What would you say is 1% change, the most important thing that they could then, try and stick to?
Well, I would say monitor your income and outgoings and your assets versus liabilities, because I think if you really monitor those, you're going to feel less overwhelmed because you'll feel in control. And by being really on the ball and knowing those numbers, it's only 4 numbers that you need to know: income, outgoings, assets, liabilities. If you know those numbers and you're more fixed on them, you're probably going to do better things. You're going to say, well, what can I do to get my pension over that next hurdle? What can I do to improve my savings? You're probably going to be more motivated, but hopefully less overwhelmed.
Yeah. So we mentioned, the 1% changes. What impact should somebody hope to see in not just 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? What impact should they hope to see on their finances?
Well, long term, it's a financial plan that is aligned with your goals, what makes you happy and is on track for you, I think. I love it when someone comes in the office and says, I want X, Y, and Z out of a financial plan. I say, well, this is what you need to do every year to do it. And then when those plans come to fruition, it's really, really satisfying. We've had so many clients this year where their plan has come to fruition, like early retirement, cleared the mortgage, helping the kids through uni, those things. It's really satisfying.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You can see the tangible tangible outcome. That's why I say, like, with money, money can be quite black and white, and I think that's why it can be painful for people, because if there's a zero there, there's a zero there. You can't.
It's telling you the truth.
Exactly right. It tells you the truth, and it tells you the truth of what you're doing, and all the transactions are there, and it's very black and white. Whereas humans, obviously, we've got emotions and all that stuff, and then when we're interacting with this thing, we're like, wait, what? But why have we got more? Why do we have less? Right? And I just think, especially in 2026, I think it's more important. It's always been important, but with, again, we don't know what's going to happen in the budget and things, but I think it's always just good to always try to be on top of these things as much as possible. So you have a book, Money Lessons, right? That's correct, right? What's the core message behind your book that you think people need now more than ever?
Well, this just teaches you habits, really, the book. I have to say, I don't know if Penguin would tell me off for saying this, it's quite outdated, that book now. So,
Lisa, you're too real.
Buy it by all means, but I think what I've told you in this podcast is really what you need out of the book.
Okay. Then that means that's a call out to Penguin to, let's do a version 2 or 3 or something like that. No, Lisa, thank you so much. It's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for like all the tips and practical examples and stories, because I think it really does bring to life. When we talk about money, sometimes, again, although I said it's very transactional, this does affect people's lives, and a lot of us have stories around it. So it does really help, the people that are watching it and listening to this. If people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
So on Instagram, I'm Miss Lolly Money. And then my website for the company is lchwealth.co.uk.
Amazing. Please, people, do connect with Lisa, especially if you've enjoyed this episode. Again, like I said, thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
I can definitely see a lot of passion in the work that you do and how you advise your clients, and just the stories, especially the one. I know we were saying the 1 million guy was mean, but I was also thinking, like, he must have felt like he won the lottery. No, but honestly,
he didn't even feel happy. That's what's so sad.
There's so many people that be like, oh man, that would be so life-changing. But, I guess it's a perspective thing, and people just have to have their different perspectives. Do you have any final words for the watchers and listeners? No,
just do one thing, if anything. I think, I'd love to hear what you choose to do.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lisa, for featuring on the podcast. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. See you next week's episode. If you enjoyed this episode, share your favorite part in the comments, tap the like button, and subscribe to the channel. Your support is really appreciated. We'll keep working hard to bring you more valuable conversations.